Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood, feeling blessed.
All right, let's take a look at homework for 8.3.4, day 1. M&Ms are titled Triangle Inequality. What on earth does that mean? Well, this kind of looks confusing, but when I explain this to you, it should make fairly decent sense. In order for you to have a triangle, you've got to have 3 side lengths, correct? And each one of those side lengths need to meet at the endpoints of those sides, and there's got to be some kind of a space in the middle, right? So the shortest possible number of sides that any polygon can have is a triangle, because it's impossible to have a polygon that has only 2 sides, right? You would have an angle. So what I used to tell my 5th graders way back in the day is a closed shape is like anything where if you had a little bug on the inside, it could not escape. This bug could easily escape from this guy right there, so that's not considered a polygon. So what would be the minimum requirements to have a polygon? Well, you've got the longest, have a triangle, the side lengths for the triangle. So you've got the longest side always of a triangle. And the other 2, there's a special relationship there. These 2 sides, when added together, have to be greater than this side here. If they were the same, then it would just eventually form a straight line. So if this was only 1 centimeter and this was 10 centimeters, then this guy would lay down flat, and so would that, and you would not actually have a polygon, you would have a straight line. So the sum of these 2 sides has to be greater than the longest side. Okay. So it says here 3 plus 10 is greater than 11. All of these, when you add 2 sides, they always have to be greater than the others. And to be honest with you, that just seems weird to put it that way. Just identify the longest side. The other 2 have to add up to a number greater than that in order for it to be a triangle. Here it doesn't work because the longest side is 15, but these 2 guys add up to only 12. So when this guy lays down flat and this guy lays down flat, it's not going to ever form a triangle. It's just going to form a straight line. Or if you don't lay them down flat, these 2 endpoints don't meet up like they do here, so there's no way that this would be considered a polygon. All right, so what do we have here? It says you learned in an earlier lesson how to classify an angle by comparing it to a right angle. Find the measure of each angle below and classify it according to its measure. I guess I didn't classify this, so maybe I better put that piece of information here. This appears to be a 45-degree angle, which is an acute angle because it's less than 90 degrees. This angle looks like that's like, could that be, this looks like that's probably 30 degrees, and that's 90. I'm thinking that's either 130 or 135, but it's an estimate, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But this is absolutely an obtuse angle because it's greater, right, than 90 degrees. And then it says, suppose a right angle is divided into 3 equal angles as shown here. So each one of those is equal. So that would be like if x was the measure, 90 degrees has been broken up into 3 equal parts. If you divide it by 3, that means that each one of these has to be 30 degrees. And that would make all of them acute angles. Hill bought a new baseball cap for $7.50, which was 1/3 off the original price. Okay, so so this is how much Gail paid, and that represented a discount. So if it was 1/3 off, that means that Gail paid 2/3 of the original price. So I'm going to break that into 2/3. So $7.50 represented 2/3. So if I cut that in half, that means that 1/3 must have been $3.75. So $3.75 plus $3.75 plus $3.75 means that the total must have been $11.25. So let's set this up as a proportion and not solve it this way, although we can solve it this way as well. 2/3 of the total is equal to $7.50. You can find out the total by multiplying each side times that. I'll come back to this in a second. So let's set it up this way. We know that $7.50 represents the part of the total, and instead of writing this as a percent, we can leave it as a fraction. But the mistake that people will make will be calling this 1/3, but actually this represents 2/3 because it was a third off, which meant you paid 2/3, right? Okay, so let's cross multiply, and you get 2x's is now equal to, what is 3 times 750? Let me use the calculator for that. 3 times 7.5 is equal to 22.5. So 22.5, so $22.50, divide that by 2, and you get x is equal to $11.25. And let's just verify that. If you divide that by 2, you get $11.25. Okay. Let's see how this relates to what we're going to do over here. If we multiply each side times the reciprocal, 2/3, the 3's cancel out, the 2's cancel out, and you get x is now equal to $7.50 times 3, which is $22.50, over 2, which is exactly what we had right there. So all of these are somewhat related, just different ways of visualizing and thinking about how to solve this problem. But definitely, the cap originally cost $11.25. Carla's traditional hybrid gets 35% fewer miles per gallon than Jeannie's solar hybrid. If Jeannie's car gets 60 miles per gallon, how many miles per gallon does Carla's car get? So 35% fewer than 60. If we want to find out how many miles per gallon fewer that this car gets compared to Jeannie's, then we'll use this as our multiplier. We'll find out 35% of 60, which is 21. Okay, so by using this as our multiplier, we got how many fewer miles per gallon the car got. And then we could go ahead and subtract that from 60 to get us 39 miles per gallon must be Carla's car mileage. But if you wanted to do it in one step, instead of taking 35% and then subtracting it from the total, that meant that her car got 65% the gas mileage. So why not use 65% or 6500ths as your multiplier, and we'll see if we get the same amount. 0.65 times 60 is equal to 39. So if you want to find out her new miles per gallon, use this as your multiplier. If you want to find out how many fewer miles per gallon she got, then use the 35% or the 3500ths as your multiplier. All right, what do we have here? An old-fashioned tile problem, because we never want to forget how this works. Adriel and Gustavo were playing a game with algebra tiles. As they compared them, they were left with the following expressions on their mats. Use legal moves to simplify what is on the mats. Be sure to record your work in a way that others can understand. Can you determine which side has the greater value? If so, show why. If not, for what values of x is mat A larger? Interesting. Okay, so this particular expression for mat A is 1x plus 2 negative x's plus a positive 1 plus a negative 4. And when you cancel out the zero pairs, you end up with negative x plus a negative 3, or negative x minus 3. And on this side, you got 1x plus 2 negative x's plus a positive 1 plus a negative 3. So when you cancel out the zero pairs there, you get negative x plus a negative 2. Well, if you just cancel out the negative x's or add x to each side, you have negative 3 on this side and negative 2 on this side. So the fact that negative 2 is greater than negative 3 tells you that mat B is the greater mat. But if you wanted to continue removing balanced sets or adding balanced sets, in this case, you could eventually write it as mat B would be 0 and mat A would be negative 1. Either way, mat B is still the greater mat. All right, filling in our giant ones and using this to solve. So this kind of takes us back a little bit. What would you multiply times 7 to give you 56? That would be an 8. So you multiply 12 times 8, and that tells you that m is equal to 96. What would you multiply times 3 to give you 48? Well, that would be times 16. So you'll multiply 8 times 16, and that makes n equal to 128. What do you multiply times 26 to give you 39? Well, that's not a real clean one, but it's not too bad. It's still a terminating decimal, 1.5. So if you multiply 1.5 times 20, you would get 30, so k has to be equal to 30. And then in this situation, what would you multiply times 20 to give you 50? That would be 2.5. So 42 times 2.5 is 105. That makes h equal to 105. All right, a rental car company allows a customer to select any car available on the lot. Currently, there are 3 blue sedans, 2 tan trucks, 2 black trucks, 4 red convertibles, 4 blue minivans, 2 black SUVs, and 3 tan hybrids, for a total of 5, 6, 7, 11, 15, 20 total vehicles to choose from. So what would be the probability of getting a black vehicle? So that could be a black truck, or it could be a black SUV. So there are a total of 4 black vehicles total, right? So the probability of getting a black truck would be 2 out of 20. The probability of getting a black SUV would be 2 out of 20. So if you combine those, because it could be either this or that, that gives you 4 out of 20. So in simplest form, that would be a 1 in 5 chance of getting a black vehicle, which is 20% chance. And that ends it for today. All right, let's move on to the next activity. Take care. Bye. Bye.
Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk